Hello everybody. I've been asked by Modern Mini 3D, aka my kid, to do some videos on terrain that he sells, and because I'm already doing a project in Vietnam, we're going to start off with items for a Vietnam fire base. This item here is a machine gun nest. It comes in three different parts: the roof, the main base, and the sandbag wall. In this video, I'll be showing what I'm going to be doing for two different gun nests, um, and how I base them and everything like that. But you don't necessarily have to base them. They do come on the base like this, and you could do them up just like this. So the painting is pretty basic and how I'm going to show you how to do it. And then I'll elaborate on how I'm basing mine, and we'll go from there. All links will be in the description below for different things that we talk about in the video. The print is done on a filament printer, so you will see extrusion lines on sandbags and on the wood. And what I'm going to do in this video is show you how to basically take those extrusion lines and either hide them or use them to your advantage in making the cloth, the fabric, the burlap, or whatever the sandbags are made out of look like that, and the wood to look like wood. So we're going to cut the video right here, and then we're going to continue on with how I'm going to base mine and the primers that I use to prime up my 3D prints. And we're back. So you don't, like I said, you don't have to necessarily base your gun nest because it's already on a base. But because I want to put it on a little bit of a raised mound, I've got this piece of wood basing that I've sanded down the edges, made it a little contoured, and I want to put it on here. But you'll notice that the corners are, you know, if I could get it like there, but I want to be able to put this on here and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to cut and round the corners, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to you about priming and what kind of primers I use, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now we've got the corners cut on the gun nest, and I have glued it onto the wooden base, and I have glued the sandbag onto the wooden base, and then I've got the roof separately. So what I do with my filament based 3D prints is I use a black or dark gray sandable automotive primer. It's a filler primer. It's a sandable primer. Because I find that it helps with extrusion layer lines a bit. And what I'll do is I'll put a very thick coat on there. I used gray on this one because I can see it there, but you won't see that after I'm done painting it. So I always spray it with a really good sandable primer, filler primer. And then I gave the model a coat with a dark flat brown. It's a Krylon camo brown, and I give it a coat with that. So this is where we're at right now. We're at the preliminary stages of painting it. So when I come back, we'll start on talking about the paints I use and painting the model. So we're on to the next stage. So the next stage for me is painting the sandbags, because they're the majority of this gun nest. So for that, I don't use our standard miniature paints. I use a lot of Vallejo, aka Interactive, and a lot of other different brands. But when I'm painting big pieces of scenery like this, I tend to use, craft paint that you get at the craft store or the dollar store or wherever else. And I buy it in these larger bottles. And during my research, I found that the sandbags weren't a burlap always. They could be a greenish color as well. So I've seen mixed sandbag positions where there's a mix of the green and the burlap color. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using this pine green, but I'm going to be mixing in a little bit of a Delta Ceramicoat color. And what's the color on this one? Trail tan. Any kind of tan. And I'm going to use that for the burlap base coat too. But for the green sandbags, I'm going to mix the green with this color a little bit so that I get a different tone of the green. So when I come back, I will have these sandbags all colored and painted. It's going to be a combination of a very, very thick dry brush to start off with, and then picking out more details and highlights and stuff with the color as we go. Okay, now we have our sandbags painted. Basically, I gave them a heavy dry brush and then went over the tops a little heavier. So with the green, the ones towards the top, I gave a little bit higher coat without mixing in the tan to lighten the color. So at this point, we've got the sandbags done. I've put in less of the tan or khaki ones, the one that look like basic burlap, because the pictures I've been seeing have more of the greenish color. So I've done that. So now at this stage, what we're going to be doing is some of the wood. And one of the things that you should, if you're doing this model, don't forget the sandbags on top of the roof. I almost forgot that. So now we're going to go away and we're going to mix up a brown. You can use whatever brown you wish for the boards and for the beams for the supports for the roof. From what I can see, that the browns on the floorboards and stuff like that were pretty mucky, but we will be doing some weathering. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a brown that I have, a raw umber, and I'm going to mix in some light tan, probably the same colors I used for the sandbags, just to lighten it down. And then I'm just going to dry brush the wood areas and see how that looks. Okay, now we've dry brushed the wood areas. I've given them a heavier dry brush in some areas, and I've tried to make the striations from the filament printing look like wood grain, and I think it looks pretty good. So what I've done is I've dry brushed in a way that the lines, just giving it a light dry brush so that it looks like wood grain. So now the next stage for this is we're going to do the corrugated metal. Probably going to be using an OD Vallejo green just for the corrugated metal. And then after that stage, we're going to go on to doing washes. Okay, now we've painted our corrugated metal with an OD green, and I've given it just a light coat so some of the brown still shows through, and it'll fit on there just like that. Okay, the next step will be a wash. Now, at this point, different people like different washes. Some people just like mixing up a black or a brown paint and thinning it out. Some people use Games Workshop washes or other companies' washes. I prefer to use. I like to use oil washes, just because I can remove in places where I want it to be removed, so it's lighter, and then some places I can have it darker. But I understand that some people don't use oil washes, so at this point, you can use whatever wash you want. Just understand that you can use ones you make up, the ones you buy from the store. Like there's Vallejo washes, there's all kinds of washes. So at this point, I'm going to step away and I'm going to use an oil wash, and then I'm going to come back and I'll just show you what I mean by it taking away a little bit and stuff like that. I'm just going to put this video part in the video. If there's people that want to know how to make oil washes, comment below, and I can do a video on how to make oil washes. But there is a lot of videos out there on how to make oil washes. For me, the oil wash that I am making up right now is a Winsor & Newton burnt umber from their Witten oil color. It's not the most expensive of the oils, but it's good. The other thing I use is a odorless paint thinner to mix it up. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna go mix up my oil wash, and I'll be right back. Oil wash all mixed, and I usually mix fairly large containers full, because if I'm doing large amounts of projects, I do it all at once. So what I use is I buy a whole bunch of cheaper brushes, synthetic brushes off Amazon. You can get bags of 50 and so on. And that's what I use to put my oil wash. And then I just toss them after I'm done. And so I get quite a bit on the brush. And then I just start dropping it on. And everybody goes, oh my God, you just wrecked it. But if we'll give it time to dry, and then we do the next stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and I'm going to coat this all in this oil wash, and then come back and I will show you how to work the oil wash and make it look a lot better, because right now this just looks gross. So what I'm going to do is paint this and I'll come right now. We're back. Okay, so the oil wash has had a little bit of time to sit, and it looks pretty gross right now. But the next step is, and you have, makeup tools, the sponges for makeup, and what we're going to do is we're going to try taking off just some of the oil wash. Okay, and if you're finding it's not coming off where you want it to come off, just use some of the odorless paint thinner that you've got. Put it in a little bit of a container, put a little bit on the tip, and then just slowly just start taking it off where you want to take it off. And you'll notice that it's coming off. And you just want to go around and, you don't want to take off too much because you want the dirty look, but you get the point. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around. I'm going to start taking off a little bit of this oil off places I want it to come off. But you can already see the wood grain on the bottom of the gun. The gun position is looking really good. Okay, so what we're going to do is stop the video right there, and I'll come back after I've taken a little bit more of this off. Okay, so I've taken all the oil off I want to take off. Now you can see the wood grain and the sandbags and stuff, and then including the roof. Okay, so at this stage you could just flock the base or whatever, but I want to go a little bit further, and I want to level off the base of this with the base of that, and use I'm going to be using some different products to make it look like mud and dirt and clay, and then I'll be adding tufts and flocking and stuff like that. But if you don't have those things, you could always make your own out of fillers and stuff like that, and mix paints and paint it. Or you could just flock over it and not worry about the lip, but I wouldn't suggest doing that. But so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this away, and I'm going to get some tools and the mud and stuff, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you guys the products and how I apply them. Okay, I'm back. So I'm going to be using quite a few different kinds of effects for mud. One of the main ones I'm going to be using is Vallejo Thick Mud. I use this for more dried dirt, and I'm gonna combo it in with a little bit of Ready Brown that's got for clay, and this one is made by WWS, and it's a light brown and it's a coarse, and I'm gonna put a little bit of that in there. I might get some of the, I've got it also in a less coarse too. But then I'm going to try out some new products that I've got. I've got some Dark Earth from AK Interactive. This one looks interesting. And I've also got some wet ground. So I'm going to make some areas that look like they're a little bit damp. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the Vallejo Thick Mud. So you can see I use this quite often. So I use these tools for oil paints and stuff and all kinds of other things, but you know, I get some on the tool, and then what I'm going to do is, because I want to kind of not have a big lip there, I'm going to do apply my dirt along the edge like this, and then kind of smooth it out. And I'm just going to do that, and I'm just going to move some of it in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this all the way around and do some parts out here, because I want the dirt to look a little bit patchy and mixed, and then in some areas I'm going to get it some wet. It doesn't dry that shiny, it dries matte. Same with the others, except for the gloss in the wet ground effect. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to do as much as I can and then come back and show you guys. Okay, so I've gotten the Vallejo thick mud, European mud, down. So what now I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and use a little bit of the light brown coarse from WWS and some of the less coarse, and make patches of kind of a red clay look. Now, like I said before, you don't have to buy products like this. You can make your own, or you could just go over it with flocking and grass and stuff like that. I'm just doing it this way because I want all my scenery to tie in. So I've gone in with the more ready clay looking mud textured paint, and I just wanted a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is, because I want a little bit of dark earth mixed in, because I find this a little too light, so I'm going to go in now with get that shine off there, some dark earth from AK Interactive, and I'll do that, and then I'm going to go in and make some little patches of wet ground, and then after that I will come back. So I finished with the dark earth from AK Interactive, and I've put a couple patches of the wet ground down. So what now I'm going to do is let it dry for a while, and then come back and determine where I'm going to put tufts and jungle plants. Okay, so I've let it dry a little bit, so you can still see the wet mud, and it's starting to dry in the other areas as well. But what I'm going to do right now is use some pigment powders. This one's you can use whatever you want. I'm using a light earth, and it's got a bit of a red tone to it, so it fits better with my theme of being Vietnam and being red clay and dust and dirty and stuff like that. So I'm going to go over with the light earth pigment, and I'll brush it off. I want everything to look dusty, a little bit wet. It tones it down just a little bit too, because some of the green is, I don't know if it shows up on camera, it's a little bright. So let me get a little bit down here. Yeah, get some in here. And as time goes by, this wet textured dirt will dry even more. And I'll put a little bit more on the a little bit more dusty on the roof. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go over it with just a light tan. light sand color for some more dust. But I'll come back once I get the other color on. But it's starting to come together. So now I'm going to come along and I'm going to use a Vallejo light yellow ochre lightly over top. And I'll start with the roof. Come in like this. Just very subtle, just a little bit. Just to give it a little bit more dusty feel. Mixed in with the reddy brown. There we go. And then we'll come in here. Oh, a little bit of wet mud there. Get that cleaned up. I'm just mainly getting the edges and higher spots on the try not to go down too low. I went down a little too low with that, and I hit the mud. And I think that's about it. So, tones down some of the brighter green in the sandbags. And I'll go around and I'll find a couple spaces here that got a little too much there. Okay. And that's how she looks right now at this point. So the next stage is to let it dry a little bit more. Oh, look on a wet spot. Clean that up. Okay. Let it dry a little bit more. Come back. Do some tufts and jungle plants. And a couple other accessories. Now, we're coming back. It's dried a bit. And it's looking really good. Now we're going to do some tufts and some jungle plants. I've got some Gamer's Grass tufts, extra large from Gamer's Grass. I've also got some dark green shrubs and some light green shrubs from Gamer Grass, and some swamp tufts from WWS. So I'm going to use these, and I'm going to place them in different places on the base of the gun nest, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what I've done. Okay, so now I've put on the tufts and the juggle shrubs. And that's how we look so far. And one of the things that I'm probably going to be doing is also putting on some jerry cans and ammo crates and stuff like that. I see a couple spots where, there we go, just some of the pigment didn't get mixed in. There we go. But yeah, and as it's drying even more, it's starting to look really good. Okay, so I'll come back after I've done a little bit more work. Now I've done all the shrubs, I've done all the tufts, and I've added some ammo crates in between. There was a little bit of a gap there, so I stacked up some ammo crates, and now it's all weathered, painted, got the tufts on. I'm gonna call it done. What I'm gonna do at the end of this is I'll put up some photos with some of my Anzacs and maybe some VC with the scenery. Another thing I did while working on this one, at the same time I was working on this one, I did want another little gun nest. And so what I've done is this. This is another one I've been making. In this one, I used the same core sandbag position, and then I added some other sandbag barricades that my kid sells on his web store. And then I took a sandbag roof section from another one of his Firebase sets that I'll be painting up, and I swapped the roof section. I took the one that comes with the set and I swapped it with another one just so I could get little variations on the gun position. And so, and there you go. And this one's been weathered in pigments, tufts, shrubs. And I think it looks really good. So what I'll do now is, this is the end of this video, but I'll put some pictures on the end with some of the miniatures on it, and then I'll move on to the next piece of scenery. Thanks guys, thanks for watching.